"Mom, if anything happens to me, don't give Tyler a penny until he changes who he is." Those were Jennifer's last words to me before she left our house 7 years ago. 6 hours later, she was dead. Her car slammed into an oak tree in the rain. I never thought those words would sit with me through every birthday and holiday. And now, even at my grandson's wedding, with flowers and champagne everywhere, I watched Tyler across the room, tall, handsome, wearing a tuxedo that must have cost more than 3 months of my pension. His father, Richard, stood by him, laughing with men who seemed to count friends by their bank accounts. No one noticed me alone at the family table, clutching the letter from Jennifer's lawyer folded inside my purse, the letter that said $33 million was mine, hidden from Tyler and his father. My small house in Boston and my old Honda gave nothing away. A server came by and told me the father of the groom wanted me in photos. I went, holding the letter like a heavy stone in my chest. Richard put his arm around me and smelled of too much cologne. He called me the grandmother of the groom and smiled without warmth. I still remember the way he left Jennifer for a younger woman. The same cold, calculating look was there now, even though he'd had 3 more failed marriages. Tyler barely looked at me. He was showing off a watch to his groomsmen and bragging about the price, $70,000, custom made, and I felt my heart drop. After Jennifer died, I tried hard to help Tyler. I let him live with me. At 16, I cooked his favorite meals, went to his school events, paid for therapy. I thought love and care could change him, but Richard's influence ran deep. At the photos, Tyler posed me like a prop, his hands cold on my shoulders. For a second, I saw Jennifer's eyes, the same deep blue with a tiny gold fleck, and then that look vanished, replaced by entitlement. I forced a smile for the camera and kept thinking, did they know what I was hiding? That Jennifer had seen right through them both? I stepped out to the terrace for air and unfolded her letter again until the paper was soft from being read. She had written that she'd watched Tyler grow more like his father, always measuring people by price tags, manipulating others, believing money fixed everything. She wrote she felt she'd failed him as a mother. Maybe she worked too much, maybe she was too soft, but she didn't want her life's work to feed the emptiness she saw in Richard. "You're the only one I trust," she'd written. "If Tyler ever truly changes, you'll know." A bridesmaid, Emma, came out and told me quietly that Vanessa had wanted a smaller wedding and even wanted to give half the honey to the community center where she volunteers. I was surprised she fell for Tyler. They seemed so different. Then, a fight started inside. Richard, drunk, was shouting at Vanessa's father, saying, "When Tyler gets his mother's money, we'll show you real wealth." My blood froze. How did Richard know about Jennifer's money? What had Tyler told him? I stood there with fear and anger twisting in my chest, the letter clutched in my hand, knowing I had to protect Jennifer's last wish, even if it meant staying quiet among smiles and champagne. I hurried back into the ballroom with one thought pounding in my head. Jennifer had been right, and the secret I'd kept for 7 years was about to blow up. The wedding coordinator stopped me before I could reach Richard, her smile polite but tight. "Mrs. Sullivan, we're handling it. Could you join the bride's family for the cake cutting? It starts in 5 minutes." From over her shoulder, I saw security quietly leading Richard to a side room. Tyler stood still, frozen with anger and shame. When our eyes met across the room, he really looked at me for the first time that day. That look took me back 7 years to the night a 16-year-old boy sobbed in my arms after the police confirmed Jennifer's death. "I'll be right there," I told the coordinator, and walked through the crowd. Whispers followed me. "Did you hear what Richard said about money? I always thought Tyler came from money. His mother died in an accident. If only they knew the truth." 15 years earlier, Jennifer had put money into a tiny tech startup that, after her death, became wildly successful. Between that investment, her life insurance, and the accident settlement, there's about $33 million sitting in accounts only I can reach. Vanessa, radiant in a designer dress, even with everything going on, came up to me and said she was sorry. I looked at my new granddaughter-in-law, trying to find the warm, caring person Emma had talked about. Vanessa is 23 and from one of Boston's old banking families. When Tyler introduced her, I'd assumed she was just another trophy. For him, beautiful, well-connected, a boost for his social climbing. "Not your fault," I said, squeezing her hand. She looked like she might understand and told me Tyler had gone to calm Richard down and asked to delay the cake cutting. Then, quietly, she asked about Jennifer, which surprised me because Tyler had never spoken about her in the 3 years they'd dated. How do you describe my fierce, brilliant daughter, the woman who worked hard as a financial analyst, raised Tyler alone after the divorce, had a laugh that filled a room, and never backed down? Vanessa's eyes softened and she said Jennifer sounded like someone she'd admire. Then she gasped, "Today is Jennifer's 63rd birthday. Did Tyler know?" I nodded. "He picked the wedding date maybe to honor her." Vanessa went pale. "He didn't remember, or he didn't care," she said. Then she asked me to help with her veil so we could talk in private. And in the quiet of the bridal suite she told me something worse. Tyler was in big financial trouble. He'd maxed out 5 credit cards paying for the honeymoon and his share of the wedding, and Richard had told him to take a loan against a future inheritance. Vanessa's hand shook on her ring as she whispered that last night she overheard Richard say they should try to have me declared mentally incompetent if I didn't cooperate after the wedding. I felt the room tilt. Vanessa was in tears and said, on her wedding day, that she thought she'd made a terrible mistake. The kind-hearted Tyler she knew at the community center seemed to disappear whenever his father was around. Tyler volunteering, helping the homeless. This didn't align with anything I'd observed over the past 7 years. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Tyler stood there, his face flushed with either anger or alcohol, perhaps both. "There you are," he snapped at Vanessa. "Everyone's waiting. What are you doing with her?" The contempt in the way he said her cut through me like a knife. This was the real Tyler, the one Jennifer had seen clearly enough to protect her fortune from. "Don't speak to your grandmother that way," Vanessa said, her voice quiet but firm. Tyler's expression darkened. "Stay out of family business, Vanessa. Dad's having a rough day." "It's your mother's birthday, Tyler," she replied. "Did you even remember?" The color drained from his face. For a moment, the mask slipped, and I glimpsed something I hadn't seen in years. "Shame, the cake," he muttered, turning away. "They're waiting." As Vanessa followed him out, she gave me a look that spoke volumes. This marriage was already fracturing barely hours after the vows. Alone in the bridal suite, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I rarely used. Stanley Friedman's office, answered a crisp voice. "This is Margaret Sullivan," I said. "I need to speak with Jennifer's lawyer immediately. There's been a development." Stanley couldn't take my call until Monday, but his assistant assured me the trust was secure. Nobody, not Richard, not Tyler, not even a team of Boston's finest lawyers, could touch Jennifer's money without my consent. I returned to the reception with my heart racing, but my resolve strengthened. The grand ballroom had transformed for the evening portion. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the dance floor, where Tyler and Vanessa were performing their first dance. They looked like figures from a fairy tale. Him in black, her in white, moving together in practiced steps that probably cost thousands in private lessons. "Beautiful couple," said a voice beside me. Vanessa's father, William Carter, offered me a glass of champagne. Unlike Richard's flashy ostentation, William exuded old money confidence. "Shame about Tyler's father causing a scene. Richard has always been theatrical," I replied. Accepting the drink, William's eyebrow rose slightly. "That's a diplomatic way of putting it." He lowered his voice. "Between us, I had concerns about this match. Vanessa has always had, shall we say, a social conscience that doesn't typically align with the Sullivan men's reputation." The comment surprised me. "You know Richard well. We've crossed paths in business." "Nothing positive." His expression remained carefully neutral. "I respect my daughter's choices, but a father worries, especially when he hears rumors about gambling debts and borrowed money." My fingers tightened around the champagne flute. "Gambling." William looked momentarily uncomfortable, as if he'd said too much. "Perhaps I'm misinformed. Excuse me, my wife is signaling me." He departed smoothly, leaving me with another piece of the puzzle. Gambling would explain Tyler's financial troubles, despite his well-paying job at an investment firm, a position I strongly suspected Richard had secured for him through dubious connections. The music changed and guests flooded the dance floor. I retreated to a quiet corner, observing the celebration with growing unease. Richard had reappeared, seemingly sobered up, working the room with his trademark charm. I watched him approach several of William Carter's business associates, clapping shoulders and laughing too loudly. "May I have this dance?" I turned to find a gentleman about my age, distinguished in his tuxedo, hand extended politely. "Robert Winters," he introduced himself. "Friend of the bride's family." "Margaret Sullivan," I replied. taking his hand after a moment's hesitation. Grandmother of the groom. As we moved to the dance floor, Robert proved himself an accomplished dancer. I hope you don't mind my forwardness, he said. You looked like you could use a rescue from your thoughts. I smiled, despite myself. That obvious. I recognized the look of someone carrying a heavy burden. I wore it myself for years after my wife passed. There was no pity in his tone, just understanding. For a moment, I allowed myself to relax into the dance, grateful for the respite from the tension. I knew your daughter, he said after a moment, his words nearly stopping my heart. Jennifer Sullivan, right. Brilliant analyst. She consulted for my firm about 12 years ago. My steps faltered. You knew Jennifer. Robert nodded. She had a remarkable mind for investment strategy, saved our company millions with her recommendations. His expression grew thoughtful. I lost track of her after she left the industry. Someone mentioned she had passed, and I was deeply sorry to hear it. Car accident, I said automatically, the words rehearsed from years of condolences. 7 years ago, a terrible loss. She talked about you a lot, always with warm words. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd gotten so used to being invisible at family events, and to Tyler brushing me off, that I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be noticed. I started to ask Robert if she'd ever mentioned me, then stopped. It felt wrong to question a stranger at my grandson's wedding. He seemed to read me anyway and said, yes, she told me about investing in Horizon Tech. Jennifer was one of the first investors. It would have made her a lot of money. My blood ran cold. How much did he know? He told me he'd seen my photo in her office and had wondered if her son had inherited the investment. Young people can waste sudden money, he said. The song ended before I could answer, and he gave me his card and melted back into the crowd, leaving me shaken. I slipped outside for air and found Vanessa on a stone bench in the small garden, still in her wedding dress, staring at her phone and wiping away tears. I'm sorry, she said. I just needed a minute. I asked if she was okay. She laughed sadly and said, no. Tyler's angry because I won't ask my father for money tonight. He says his father has connections that could make us rich if we act now. He even said maybe he should have married someone who supports his drive, instead of someone who cares for others. Hearing that was like a punch. It sounded exactly like Richard. Vanessa told me Tyler used to be quiet and struggling in college, working at the campus cafe, and that his mother's charity work inspired him to volunteer. But as he climbed the ladder at work, he changed. Designer clothes, fancy restaurants, then gambling. Her face went white when she said Tyler promised he'd stopped months ago. A text buzzed. The cake cutting was starting, so she left. Before she went, I told her I wanted to talk with her and Tyler after the honeymoon. There's something they need to know about Jennifer and the money she left, only it's not what Tyler thinks. For the first time that night I felt Jennifer close, as if she approved I was finally ready to tell the truth. She trusted me with 7 years ago. Inside, the cake cutting was all smiles for the cameras. Tyler and Vanessa feeding each other slices of a 5-tier white chocolate ganache that must have cost a fortune, while I stood at the edge thinking about Robert's words. Did he come by chance or on purpose? Emma, Vanessa's sister, found me with 2 plates and said, thought you might want some. She bit into the cake and muttered that $30,000 for cake tasted like a cheap supermarket one. I almost choked at the price. Emma looked at me and said I didn't seem like the Sullivans, and I just smiled. Maybe that's why Vanessa trusts me. Emma's voice was soft but firm. I worried when she started dating him. He looked like every spoiled rich kid at Dartmouth. I almost laughed. If only she knew there was no trust fund for Tyler. At least not one he could reach. But Emma went on, saying Vanessa always claimed he was different, that he carried struggles and depth beneath the polished surface. Maybe she saw something the rest of us missed. Or maybe it wasn't really there, she said with a shrug. Her words lingered in my mind as Richard appeared, flashing his fake charm. Mrs. Sullivan, he said smoothly, would you excuse us, Emma? Family matter. Emma shot me a look, silently asking if I was okay. I nodded, and she drifted away, though not happily. The second she was gone, Richard's mask dropped. We need to talk about Tyler's inheritance, he snapped. Direct and crude, pure Richard. This isn't the time or place, I replied coolly. It's the perfect time, he said, his voice low but full of pressure. Tyler's starting a new life. He needs his mother's money now, not when you decide he's ready. I stared at him, stunned by his bluntness. What makes you so sure Jennifer left him anything? For just a second, I saw doubt in his eyes, but then he sneered. Don't play games, Maggie. Everyone knew Jennifer had that Horizon Tech investment when it skyrocketed after her death. That fortune should have gone straight to her son, legally, I said firmly. It goes to whoever she chose in her will. His eyes narrowed. And you've been controlling it for years, handing out crumbs so he stays dependent on you. Classic manipulation. The hypocrisy made my blood boil. Is that what you've been telling Tyler? That I'm manipulating him? I've told him the truth, Richard said, leaning closer, his cologne overwhelming me, that his grandmother is withholding his birthright. He needs that money, Maggie. We both do. I repeated, catching the slip. His face hardened. I've invested everything in him, my time, my connections. Now we're on the brink of something huge, but we need capital. I shook my head. Another one of your schemes, Richard, like the real estate disaster in 2012, or that restaurant chain in 2018. His eyes flickered in surprise. You've been keeping tabs on me. I've been protecting my grandson. I shot back, exactly what Jennifer would have wanted. At her name, a dark shadow crossed his face. Jennifer never understood business. All those ethics, nothing but dead weight. Tyler's mine. He's finally becoming the man I raised him to be. Don't stand in the way. The man you raised, I said slowly, is exactly the kind of man Jennifer feared he'd become. For a second, I saw pure hatred in his eyes before he quickly smoothed his face back into charm as someone walked by. Think about what I said, Maggie. We'll talk again soon. And then he walked away, just as Tyler appeared. My grandson was flushed from dancing, maybe drinking. I couldn't tell. What did Dad want? He asked, eyes tracking Richard. To congratulate me on your beautiful wedding. I lied, unwilling to open the rift between us tonight. Not now. He barely heard me. Have you seen Vanessa? She vanished after the cake cutting. Maybe she needed a break. It's been a long day, I suggested. He frowned. She should be mingling with my clients. I invited Blackstone Capital's whole executive team. On your wedding day. I couldn't hide the disbelief in my voice. It's called networking, Grandma, he said, dismissive. Every event's an opportunity. Dad taught me that. The words were pure Richard, spoken with the blind loyalty of a son who refused to see his father's failures. Your mother had a different view, I reminded him gently. She believed relationships are built on trust, not transactions. His face shut down. Yeah, well, Mom's philosophy didn't exactly work out for her, did it? Divorced, overworked, dead at 45. No offense, Grandma, but I've chosen my path. The words stung like slaps. Before I could answer, his attention shifted. There's Vanessa finally with her father. His tone softened, dripping with charm. I should join them. William's considering me for a position at Carter Financial. And off he went, his posture straight, smile wide, the perfect son. I watched Vanessa's face stay stiff as he wrapped an arm around her. Before I could dwell, a hotel staff member hurried over. Mrs. Sullivan, there's an urgent call for you at the front desk. Puzzled, I followed him to a quiet office. A landline sat off the hook. I picked it up. Hello, Maggie. It's Stanley Friedman, Jennifer's lawyer. His voice was tight, uneasy. I know it's your grandson's wedding, Maggie, but this couldn't wait. Stanley's voice was tight with urgency. Someone's been asking questions about Jennifer's estate. My grip tightened on the phone. What kind of questions? Legal ones. Walsh and Bennett filed paperwork yesterday. The name alone made my stomach drop. They were notorious for tearing apart wills. And Maggie, the client listed is Tyler Sullivan. The room spun. That's impossible. Tyler doesn't even know the details of Jennifer's will. There's more, Stanley said grimly. They're digging into mental competency requirements for trustees. They're preparing a case to have you declared unfit to manage the trust. Vanessa's earlier warning echoed in my head. This wasn't idle talk. It had already begun. What do I need to do? I asked, forcing myself to focus on action instead of the betrayal slicing through me. For now, nothing, he said. Jennifer's trust is solid. She made sure of that. But Maggie, his voice softened. Be careful around both Tyler and Richard. Document everything. And maybe consider telling the truth sooner rather than later. Sometimes transparency is the best protection. When I hung up, I stood frozen. Jennifer's letter heavy in my purse like it was burning a hole through the fabric. For years, I'd shielded Tyler from the truth that his mother had seen the Richard in him long before I wanted to admit it. I'd hoped he'd change, that he'd grow back into the boy he once was, before Richard poisoned him. But as I returned to the reception and saw Tyler laughing with his father in the corner, their heads bent close like co-conspirators. I knew Jennifer had been right. Some patterns never break. It was time. Time to reveal the truth about the $33 million, not just to save myself, but to finally give Tyler the one thing he'd never had, a clear look at who he really was, and the chance to decide if he wanted to stay that way. The next morning's brunch was smaller. Just family and the wedding party gathered in the Carters' sunlit conservatory. I'd barely slept, Stanley's warning replaying in my head. The room was warm and bright, filled with tropical plants, but tension clung to me like a shadow. Richard sat with a cluster of groomsmen, looking far too polished for someone who'd been escorted out by security the night before. He caught my eye and raised his mimosa in a mocking toast. Before I could react, William Carter approached, offering me coffee. "I hope you found your accommodations comfortable." "Very," I replied. The Carters had insisted I stay in their guest house instead of the hotel. At first, I thought it was kindness. Now, I wasn't so sure. "I wonder if we might speak privately before the young couple arrives," William said. I followed him to a stone terrace overlooking perfectly trimmed gardens. For a while, we simply sipped our coffee, watching gardeners clip the hedges. Finally, he spoke. "I should tell you, Maggie, I knew Jennifer." My eyebrows shot up. Was there anyone here who didn't have secrets about my daughter? "Not closely," he clarified. "We served on a charity board together about 10 years ago. Education for underprivileged kids. She was formidable. She pushed us, challenged us, forced us to think differently, made us uncomfortable, but in the best way." A swell of pride warmed me. Yes, that was Jennifer to the core. "When Vanessa started dating Tyler, I didn't connect the name right away," William went on. "But once I did, I looked into him, his past, his relationship with Richard, and," I prompted when he hesitated. His eyes held mine steadily. "I found troubling patterns. Richard has a history of using his son to reach money and connections. 3 failed businesses, each bankrolled by families of Tyler's girlfriends, multiple loans in Tyler's name." My heart sank. "And knowing this, you still let Vanessa marry him?" His face tightened. "I raised my daughters to make their own choices, even when I disagree. Vanessa sees something in him I don't. But I protected her in other ways. Their prenup is airtight. Her inheritance is locked in a trust she alone controls, just like Jennifer did for Tyler." "Does Vanessa know about your investigation?" I asked. "Not the full extent, but she's sharp. She sees Richard's hold on him." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "And that brings me to why I wanted to speak with you." Rumors had been swirling. William explained that Jennifer left behind a fortune Tyler expected to inherit after I was gone. Richard, it seemed, had been using those whispers to pull in investors and loans, and William feared Vanessa might be dragged into their mess. I finished the thought for him. "So you want to know if the rumors are true?" He nodded. I could have lied, kept up the secret I'd guarded for 7 long years, but what good would it do now? "Jennifer left everything to me," I said softly, "with very clear instructions about Tyler." William's brow lifted slightly, though his face gave nothing else away. "I see. And Richard and Tyler don't know this." "They suspect, but they don't know the details," I admitted, swallowing hard. "That's why they're trying to challenge my competency as trustee." Shock flickered across William's steady composure. Before I could answer, the terrace door swung open. Tyler appeared, looking wrinkled and bleary-eyed, not the charmingly rumpled kind of youth, but the aftertaste of a hangover. "There you are," he said sharply. "Dad's looking for you, Grandma." William rose smoothly before I could reply. "Actually, Tyler, I wanted to speak with you about a possible position at Carter Financial. Perhaps after brunch." The fog in Tyler's bloodshot eyes cleared instantly. "Really?" Yes, absolutely good. I'll have my assistant arrange it," William said, giving me a polite nod before leaving us. The moment he was gone, Tyler's expression hardened into calculation. "What were you two talking about?" "Just getting to know each other. We're family now, after all," I said lightly. "Where's Vanessa?" "Still getting ready," he waved carelessly. "Women, right? Takes an hour to put on lip gloss." The casual sexism stung. Another echo of Richard, "Your father's looking for me." I pressed. Tyler's face grew guarded. "Yeah. He wants to talk before we leave for the honeymoon." "The honeymoon you put on credit cards," I said evenly. "The one you can't afford." He blanched. "How did you, Vanessa?" "She had no right," his voice rose. But I cut in. "She's worried about you, Tyler. About the gambling, the debts. Your father's grip on you." Color flamed in his cheeks. This is exactly why I need Mom's money now. Not when you decide I've passed whatever ridiculous test you've set. Your father's schemes, you mean, I said sharply. Like all the others that crashed and burned. You don't understand business, he snapped, parroting Richard's words from the night before. Dad's building something big this time. We just need capital. And you think your mother's money is the answer. It's my money. His voice thundered across the terrace, drawing stares. He dropped his volume but not his fury. Mom would have wanted me to have it, not you. What do you even do with it? Live in that tiny house, drive that junk car, wear the same 3 outfits. Every word showed how little he knew me, or his mother. Jennifer had taught me simplicity was a choice, not a burden. She'd wanted the same for him, once. Tyler, I said quietly, steadying my voice, there's something you need to know about your mother's will. His eyes lit with greedy hope. You're finally going to release the money. No. I took a long, grounding breath. I'm going to tell you the truth. The money was never designated for you. Jennifer left everything to me, with no obligation to ever pass it on. The blood drained from his face. That's not possible. She wouldn't. She did. I held his gaze. And before you and your father tried to declare me incompetent. You should know this. If you attempt it, the entire fortune goes directly to charity. Jennifer foresaw this exact situation. Tyler stumbled back as if struck. Before he could respond, Richard's voice slid across the terrace like oil. What's this? Family discussion without me. I'm wounded. He read Tyler's expression instantly, and his smile cracked. What's going on? Ask your son, I said, rising and taking my purse. He has news about the inheritance you've been counting on. I walked away, but Richard's urgent whispers carried after me. It's gone, Dad. Tyler choked. It was never ours. For the first time since Jennifer's death, the crushing weight of her secret lifted from my shoulders. The truth was finally out, at least part of it. What I hadn't told them was the line from Jennifer's final letter that still echoed in my heart. If Tyler ever truly changes, Mom, the money is his. You'll know when that time comes. If he never changes, use it for good in this world. Jennifer's last words echoed in my mind as I stepped back into the brunch hall. Across the room, I caught Vanessa's eyes. She was watching the terrace, worry etched into her young face as her new husband argued with his father. Our gaze held, and I knew the real test had only just begun. 3 weeks passed. Tyler and Vanessa went to the Maldives on a honeymoon they couldn't afford, while I returned to my quiet routines, volunteering at the hospital, tending my garden, attending book club. On the surface, life seemed calm, but beneath it, I was preparing for the storm I knew was coming. Stanley tightened the legal protections around Jennifer's trust. William Carter discreetly offered his support, even access to his lawyers if it came to that. And after Robert Winters warned me that Richard was asking dangerous questions about me, I had a security system installed. The calm broke on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. My doorbell rang, and through the camera I saw Vanessa on my porch, soaked through, hair plastered to her face. Maggie, she said when I opened the door, her voice thick with emotion. I need to talk to you. I brought her inside, wrapped her in towels, and set a mug of hot tea in her hands. She sat at my kitchen table, looking suddenly younger, like a girl trying to play at being a wife. Tyler told me everything, she said at last, about Jennifer's money, about what you told him at the brunch. Her eyes searched mine. Is it true? Did his mother really leave him nothing? She left him nothing directly, I said quietly. She left everything to me. Why? He's her son. I thought about how to answer. Jennifer saw the way Richard was shaping him. She worried what unlimited money would do to Tyler if he got it too young, without earning it. Part of it was about teaching responsibility, but mostly, it was about protecting him from himself. Vanessa looked down into her tea. The honeymoon was awful, she said suddenly. Tyler was on the phone with Richard the whole time. They fought, then plotted, then fought again. He barely spoke to me, except to ask if my father might invest in their new venture. My heart ached for her. When we got back yesterday, Richard was waiting in our apartment. They spent hours in Tyler's office, shouting. This morning, Tyler told me he's hired lawyers to contest the will. He says, you manipulated Jennifer when she was weak that the money should rightfully be his. I'd expected this. Still, hearing it stung. And what do you think? I think, she hesitated, twisting her wedding ring. I think Tyler's not the man I thought I married. Her next words chilled me. The community center called yesterday. Tyler quit. Said he couldn't waste time on charity cases. The cruelty of it so much like Richard made me wince. There's something else. she whispered. Tyler doesn't know I heard, but Richard was talking about other ways to speed up the inheritance. It scared me, Maggie. I don't think you're safe. Do you think they'd harm me? I don't know anymore. Richard has a hold over him. It's like Tyler turns into someone else around his father. We sat in silence, rain drumming against the windows. Then I made a choice. There's something you should see. I went to my bedroom and returned with Jennifer's letter. Worn soft from years of being read, she left this with her will. I've never shown it to anyone. Vanessa read it slowly. Her expression shifted from curiosity to shock, then sorrow. Mom, I've watched Tyler become more like Richard every year. I tried everything to break his father's influence. Money would only fuel his worst impulses. But I haven't given up hope. If he ever truly changes, you'll know. And then, Mom, the money is his. Until then, protect him from himself. And protect yourself from both of them. She knew, Vanessa whispered, folding the letter carefully. She saw it all coming. She did, I said softly. She loved Tyler, even when she couldn't reach him. What will you do now? Defend the trust, as Jennifer asked. And hope. Hope for what? That Tyler finds his way back. That he chooses to be more than Richard's son. Vanessa's phone buzzed with a text. Her face tightened. It's Tyler. He wants me home. They're meeting with the lawyers. She smoothed her damp dress, breathing hard. I need to think about what to do next, she said. As I walked her to the door, she turned and asked the question that had been on both our minds. What do you actually do with all that money, Maggie? Do you just let it sit in bank accounts? I gave a small smile. Jennifer was clear about that too. Half the income goes to charities that help victims of domestic abuse, something she cared about deeply, and the other half pays scholarships for low-income students in Tyler's name. He doesn't even know that some of the money, I told her, stays untouched, growing, waiting for the day Tyler becomes the man his mother hoped he could be. Vanessa's face changed. So, you never meant to keep it all, she said. It was never about the cash. After she left, I called Stanley to warn him the legal fight was coming, then rang William Carter. They're moving forward to contest the will, I told him. Vanessa thinks they might try other methods. William's answer was immediate and kind. Pack a bag. I'm sending a car. You'll stay at our guest house until this is handled. I can't impose, I began, but he cut me off. Jennifer protected her son from his worst instincts. Let me protect his mother from the consequences. A few hours later I was back in the guest house, watching lights come on across the estate when an unfamiliar number flashed on my phone. Robert Winters. He warned me, quietly. Richard Sullivan had been asking about Jennifer's investment setup, and my name had come up. Be careful, he said, and then he was gone. For 7 years I'd carried this secret alone, and suddenly so many people either knew or suspected. William, Vanessa, Robert, Tyler, Richard, their lawyers. I thought about calling Tyler, trying once more to reach the boy I'd helped raise. But before I could dial his name lit up my screen, a message from Vanessa. Tyler's gone to stay with Richard. He needs space, she said. She was coming to my house that night and had more to tell me. She arrived after 9, eyes rimmed with red but steady, and without wasting time she pulled a small flash drive from her purse. I found something, she said. She'd gone into Tyler's office. She knew she shouldn't have, but after what she'd heard she had to know what they were planning. She plugged the drive into her laptop and showed me years of emails between Tyler and Richard, plans about how to get at Jennifer's money. Strategies discussed long before Tyler ever met Vanessa. One email from Richard 3 years ago made my blood run cold. The Carter girl is perfect. Her father knows everyone in Boston finance. Get close to her. Charm her family. Someone in their circle must know where Jennifer hid the money. Don't blow this like you did with the Peterson girl. Eyes on the prize. 3M is worth a few dinners. Tyler's reply was chillingly casual. Already on it. She's into that volunteer stuff my mom did. Playing along is annoying but working. I sat there stunned. Their plan went far deeper and was colder than anything I'd imagined. There's more, Vanessa said, her voice empty. Hundreds of emails, plans to contest the will, discussions about declaring you incompetent, and backup plans if the lawyers failed. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of backup plans? I asked, though I already feared the answer. Nothing that says we'll hurt her, Vanessa whispered, but talk about accelerating the timeline and removing obstacles. She copied everything onto the flash drive and her father's lawyers were looking through it now. I sank back in my chair, stunned by how deep the betrayal went, not just toward me, but toward her. I feel such a fool, she whispered. I really thought he'd changed. We believe what we need to about the people we love, I said, gently, and she looked up, surprised. Jennifer saw it early because she lived with Richard. I saw it later because I watched it grow, I told her, taking her hand. So, what do we do? She asked. We protect ourselves, I said firmly, and follow Jennifer's plan. It's working so far. She stared at me. After those emails, do you still think he can change? She asked. I have to believe it, I said simply. He's still Jennifer's son. The next morning, Emma came by with awkward politeness. Dad asked me to check on you, and when she heard the truth, she said she'd felt something wrong about Tyler from the start. Why aren't you angrier? She demanded, and I told her I'd had 7 years to prepare. Jennifer warned me this might come. Then Emma's phone buzzed. Tyler was at the main house, demanding to see Vanessa. I stood up even though Emma told me to stay. It was time I faced this. We hurried over and found Tyler shouting at the front door while William calmly blocked him. You can't keep her from me, Tyler raged, pointing at me, and William told him to leave before he made a scene. I stepped forward and told them we needed an honest talk. Tyler, eyes wild and voice sharp, accused me of lying about his mother's money and of turning Vanessa against him. I told him, quietly but clearly, that his mother made her choice because she knew him, and his own actions had shown her to be right. Vanessa then appeared in the doorway, pale but steady, and for the first time, the lies, the plans, and the long, slow unspooling of their scheme stood exposed in the open air. Vanessa's voice shook as she confronted him. I found those emails because I was worried about you, about what you and Richard were planning. Tyler's anger faltered for a second, replaced by calculation. Babe, you don't understand, he said smoothly. Dad gets carried away with words. We were just trying to protect what's mine, by deceiving me, by using me to get to Maggie. She shot back. The volunteer work, the interest in my causes, was any of it real? For a moment, shame flickered across Tyler's face, but then his expression hardened. I did what I had to do. That money belongs to me. It's my birthright. Money isn't a birthright, I said quietly. It's a responsibility. One your mother didn't think you were ready for. You poisoned her against me, he shouted, his control slipping. Just like you've poisoned Vanessa. William stepped forward, calm but firm. That's enough. Leave, Tyler. Not without my wife, Tyler snapped. But Vanessa shook her head, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. I'm not going anywhere with you, not until I know if there's anything left worth saving. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. This isn't over. Dad was right about you. You've turned everyone against us, but we'll get what's ours. He stormed off toward his car, leaving the air heavy with menace. Vanessa exhaled shakily. I've never seen him like that. I have, I murmured, when he was 17, furious at the world for taking his mother. Richard has fed that anger ever since. William wrapped a protective arm around his daughter. Let's go inside. The lawyers will be here soon. As we turned back, I glanced at Tyler's retreating figure. A sharp sadness washed over me. Was Jennifer's plan helping him face the truth, or had it only driven him deeper into Richard's grip? Either way, the line had been drawn. Richard wouldn't stop not until he got what he thought was his, even if it destroyed the last of his son's integrity. The next 2 days blurred with lawyers and security meetings. We learned Richard's gambling debts were large and dangerous, making his desperation clearer. Vanessa filed for a restraining order after Tyler caused a scene at her office. I endured hours of depositions, accused of manipulating Jennifer's will. By Friday night, I was drained, sitting alone in the guest house as darkness settled over the estate. My phone rang. Blocked number. Hello, I answered cautiously. Mrs. Sullivan, came the familiar voice of Robert Winters. I need to see you. It's urgent. If this is about Jennifer, it's about Richard, he cut in. I have information you need to hear. In person. I hesitated, remembering William's warnings. I know you're at the Carter estate, Robert continued. Richard has been monitoring your movements. That's part of what I need to explain. A chill slid down my spine. How do I know I can trust you? He lowered his voice. Jennifer called you Magpie when she was little, because you collected shiny things, sea glass, buttons, coins with odd dates. My breath caught. No one else knew that name. How could you possibly? I'll explain everything. Meet me at the public garden, 1 hour. Come alone. The line went dead. Every instinct told me not to go. It could be a trap. But that nickname, something so private, gnawed at me. After 15 minutes of agonizing, I decided I wouldn't go alone. William, grim but supportive, assigned a security detail to shadow me from a distance. Emma insisted on driving. The garden was nearly empty at dusk. A few couples strolled the outer paths. I sat by the fountain, Emma's car visible beyond. Mrs. Sullivan, I startled. Robert Winters lowered himself onto the bench beside me. His suit was rumpled, his face drawn. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know it's asking a lot." "How did you know about Magpie?" I demanded. He gave a faint, tired smile. "Jennifer told me. We were closer than I let on at the wedding." Understanding dawned. "You were seeing my daughter." He nodded. "For almost 2 years before her accident. They kept it a secret because of her job at the firm, and because Richard was still causing trouble through Tyler." My head spun as I tried to fit this into everything I knew about Jennifer's last years. "She never once mentioned you. She was protecting me," he said quietly. "Richard threatened anyone she dated after him, sabotaging careers, sending hateful messages. He couldn't stand the idea of her moving on." Robert looked at his hands. "When Jennifer put money into Horizon Tech, I helped her set it up. I knew it might be worth a lot someday." I realized then he'd always known there'd be money, but he didn't know she left it all to me until after she died. His face grew serious. "That's why I asked to meet you. Richard's obsessed with getting that money. He's hired people to watch you, looking for any way to attack the trust." "How do you know?" I asked. "He came to me last week and offered me a cut if I'd help him challenge the will, using my old relationship with Jennifer." Robert's face hardened. "I refused. Of course I refused, but it showed me how far he'll go." He leaned closer. "He even has records of your recent doctor visits. He knows about your heart condition." My blood ran cold. My mild arrhythmia wasn't serious, but in a lawyer's hands it could be used to say I wasn't capable. "There's more," Robert went on. "He's been twisting things for Tyler since Jennifer died, making his mother sound weak and foolish, trying to turn Tyler into a copy of himself." His eyes met mine. "Jennifer was the strongest, clearest-headed person I've ever known." "Yes," I whispered. "She was." He told me Jennifer had trusted him and had left him an envelope before she died, with instructions to keep it unless Tyler became just like Richard. His hand shook as he handed it to me. Inside was a letter and a USB drive, with recordings of Jennifer and Richard talking after their divorce. Him talking about Tyler and bragging about how he planned to use the boy to get her money. "It's ugly," Robert said. "She recorded him threatening her." I stared at the envelope, feeling its weight. "Why didn't she use this in the custody fight?" I asked. He shook his head. "She tried, but the judge wouldn't allow the tapes. The lawyer said they were recorded without consent. Jennifer kept them anyway, thinking one day Tyler might need to hear the truth." After that, 2 days disappeared in a fog of lawyers and security checks. William's team found out Richard had big gambling debts to dangerous people, which explained his panic. Vanessa got a temporary restraining order after Tyler caused a scene at her office, and I spent long hours answering questions in depositions about Jennifer's will, defending myself against claims I'd pressured her while she was dying. By Friday I was worn out. I sat in the guest house watching nightfall over the Carter estate when my phone rang from a blocked number. "Hello," I said. It was Robert. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need to see you." "It's urgent," I started to say. This wasn't about Jennifer or about Richard, but he cut in. "You need to hear this in person. Richard's been watching you." A chill ran through me. "How do I know I can trust you?" I asked. He answered softly. "Jennifer called you Magpie when she was little because you collected shiny things, sea glass, buttons, old coins." My breath stopped. No one knew that nickname. "Meet me at the public garden by the Carter estate, alone, in 1 hour." The call ended before I could say a word. Every part of me screamed it could be a trap, but something else, something Jennifer left behind, pulled me toward going. Hearing that childhood nickname, something so private, kept eating at me. And after 15 minutes I decided I wouldn't go by myself. William didn't want to at first, but he understood when I told him why. My head of security would hang back out of sight, and Emma insisted on driving me and waiting in the car a little way off. Their concern touched me. "I know this isn't your fight," I said. And he gave a grim smile. "Richard Sullivan turned it into our fight when he dragged my daughter into his schemes." The public garden was almost empty as dusk turned to night. A few couples walked far away and I sat on a bench by the fountain with Emma's car visible in the lot. I jumped when Robert Winters sat down beside me. He looked tired and rumpled, nothing like at the wedding, and thanked me for coming. I demanded how he knew about Magpie. He said Jennifer had told him. and that they'd been closer than he let on. At the wedding, he admitted he'd been involved with my daughter for almost 2 years before her accident, but they kept it secret because of her job, and because Richard kept causing trouble through Tyler. My head was spinning. Jennifer never mentioned him, but Robert said she was protecting me. He told me Richard had threatened anyone she dated, sabotaging careers and making life hard because he couldn't stand her moving on. Robert said he'd helped Jennifer set up an investment in Horizon Tech and knew it could be worth a lot. He only learned she left everything to me after she died. Then he told me why he'd asked to meet. Richard was dangerously obsessed with getting that money. He'd hired people to watch me and was looking for ways to challenge the trust. Robert said Richard even came to him last week, offering a cut if he would help attack the will using his past with Jennifer. Robert refused, but it showed how far Richard would go. He leaned closer and told me Richard had records of my recent doctor visits and knew about my heart problem. My blood ran cold. My mild arrhythmia wasn't serious, but in a courtroom it could be twisted to say I wasn't fit to manage things. Worse, Robert said, Richard had been manipulating Tyler, telling him lies about his mother to make her seem weak and easy to fool, and trying to shape Tyler into his image. Then Robert gave me a sealed envelope Jennifer had left with him before she died. Inside was a letter and a USB stick with recordings of conversations between Jennifer and Richard after their divorce, him threatening her, mocking Tyler, and talking about using the boy to get the money. I asked why she hadn't used this in the custody fight. Robert said the judge ruled the recordings inadmissible because of how they were obtained, but Jennifer kept them anyway, saying one day Tyler might need to hear the truth. Robert said quietly that Tyler deserved that chance before he lost everything: his marriage, his integrity, his mother's good name. A twig snapped nearby, and we both tensed. Robert didn't trust that Richard hadn't followed him, so we left. As I walked back to Emma's car, holding the envelope and thinking about everything he'd told me, I felt Jennifer's presence more clearly than I had in years. The pieces Jennifer had put in place, the trust, the recordings, even Robert, were finally coming together. And I felt, for the first time since the wedding, a small spark of hope that her plan might work. The recording was worse than I'd pictured. We sat in the guest house, living room, William, Vanessa, Emma, Stanley, and I, and listened while Richard's voice, a little younger but easy to recognize, played out loud. He mocked Tyler for caring about homeless people, laughed about taking him to a casino, and said empathy was useless compared to winning and getting ahead. Jennifer's calm voice pushed back, warning him not to gamble with their underage son, and threatening custody if he did it again. Richard sneered that she'd hit the jackpot with her tech investment and hinted he would use the boy to get the money. We all sat stunned when the recording ended. "There's more," I said. William shook his head in disgust. He said it was strong proof of Richard's character, but worried it might not help in court over the trust. I told him it wasn't just for court, it was for Tyler. Vanessa, who had been very quiet, said Tyler would call it fake or out of context. Stanley agreed the recordings, put together with emails Vanessa found, showed a pattern that would be hard to ignore. Emma said we had to get Tyler away from Richard and make him listen. I thought about places he might come alone, and the next morning I texted him, "I'm at Jennifer's grave. Come alone if you want the truth about your mother's will." The cemetery was calm, sunlight through old oaks, and I sat by her headstone with lilies. When Tyler finally arrived, he looked thin and wary, keeping his distance. I told him this was between him, his mother, and me, and gave him the tablet with the recordings. He hesitated, then sat down and listened. For 40 minutes he didn't move as his father's cruel words played, dismissing Tyler as weak, talking about using him to get the money, and planning to shape him into Richard's image. The worst was a clip from when Tyler was 17, right after Jennifer died, Richard saying the timing was perfect, that a grieving kid could be molded and, in a few years, married into money, and convinced the fortune was his. Hearing that, Tyler went very still, and I could see the truth sink in. When the recordings ended, Tyler just sat there, frozen, staring at his mother's grave. I didn't rush him, just let the silence stretch. Finally, he asked in a hollow voice, "Is there more?" I nodded, "Yes, but I think you've heard enough to understand." He pulled out the earbuds, like a machine moving without thought. "Why didn't you show me this years ago?" he whispered. I told him Jennifer had left instructions. The recordings were to stay hidden, unless he was completely under Richard's control, at risk of losing himself. I touched his hand gently. "She always hoped you'd find your way without needing to hear these ugly truths." Tyler's breathing turned shaky, his composure slipping. I trusted him, he said, almost choking. Everything I did, college, career, even marrying Vanessa, was guided by him. His voice cracked. Was anything he ever told me true? About Mom, about you, about anything? I met his eyes. Your father creates his own reality, Tyler. He believes whatever benefits him. Tyler shot to his feet, pacing by the headstone. The things I've done, the person I've become. He looked at me, really looked. I threatened you, my own grandmother. I was ready to have you declared incompetent, because he convinced me you'd stolen from me. You were a child when Jennifer died, I said softly. He was the only parent you had left. Of course you trusted him. But Tyler shook his head fiercely. Stop making excuses for me. I'm not a child anymore. I made my own choices. And even now, after hearing all this, part of me still wants to defend him. What does that say about me? I stepped closer. It says you're loyal. It says you wanted to believe in your father's love. He turned away, shoulders trembling, and I gave him space. When he finally faced me again, his cheeks were wet, but his eyes were steady. What happens now? He asked. That depends on you, I said. The money, the lawsuit, your marriage, all of it hinges on what you decide next. He stared at his mother's grave, then back at me. I need time to figure out who I am without his voice in my head. I nodded. Take all the time you need. As we walked toward the gate, he suddenly stopped. Grandma. The word hit me like a jolt. I hadn't heard it in years. Yes, I asked. His eyes searched mine. Did Mom ever give up on me? Really give up? I thought of Jennifer's letter, her faith in the man he could still become. Never, I said. She always believed in you. He gave a small, distant nod. I need to see Vanessa. Tell her something true for once. Watching him walk to his car, I felt Jennifer's presence, almost as if she whispered on the wind. This is just the beginning, Mom. The hardest part comes next. And I knew she was right. Tyler had heard the truth, but accepting it, truly facing his years of manipulation and his own choices, would take time. 6 months passed. Autumn faded into winter, and Boston was buried in snow. I returned to my small house, though William insisted the new security system stay. 3 days after the cemetery, Tyler dropped the lawsuit. Richard, furious, tried his own, but pulled back once his lawyers realized the trust would go straight to charity if he challenged my competency. Tyler and Vanessa separated but began counseling, first apart, then together. I gave them space. Richard, drowning in debts and abandoned by investors, left Boston. Tyler later told me he'd popped up in Las Vegas, working in a dingy casino, chasing new marks. Tyler's change was slow but real. He quit his finance job and went back to the community center, where he and Vanessa once volunteered. He started small, sorting donations, serving meals, listening to people's stories. No one there knew about the inheritance battle. To them, he was just Tyler, the quiet volunteer who stayed late to mop floors. On a snowy February morning, exactly 7 years and 6 months after Jennifer's death, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, Tyler stood on the porch, snowflakes tangled in his hair. Can we talk? He asked. Over tea at my kitchen table, the same table where Vanessa had begged for my help months before. Tyler began to outline what he called his redemption plan. I want to use my finance background to help people budget, save, and avoid falling into predatory loans, Tyler said, his voice steady but full of passion. The community center doesn't have anything like this, and the people there really need it. As I listened, I heard something new in him, Jennifer's fire, finally shining through after years of Richard's shadow. I've been working with Vanessa again, he went on, just as friends, as colleagues. She's building a program for homeless youth. We're not back together like before, but maybe we could be, if she decides I'm worth the risk. And what do you need from me? I asked softly. Nothing, he said, meeting my eyes. I'm not here for money, or forgiveness, or anything else. I just wanted you to know, I'm trying, really trying this time. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Jennifer would be proud of you. His throat worked as he swallowed. I've been reading some of Mom's old journals. It's like I'm meeting her as an adult for the first time. She was extraordinary. Yes, I said simply. She was. We sat in a comfortable silence while snow fell outside. Then Tyler spoke again. There's something else. I've been meeting with Robert Winters. I tried not to show my surprise. He's been telling me stories about Mom, who she really was, not Dad's version. He's also offered to invest in the financial literacy program. Said Mom would have loved the idea. That sounds like her. I agreed with a small smile. Tyler hesitated before asking the question I knew had been weighing on him. The money, Mom's money, what happens to it now? I studied him carefully. There was no greed in his voice, this time just curiosity. It continues to fund the scholarships and the domestic violence programs Jennifer set up, and it's still growing in the trust. For what purpose? He pressed. That's for you to discover, I said gently, when you're ready. 1 year later, on a bright spring morning, I sat in a small community center auditorium, watching Tyler speak to the very first graduating class of the Jennifer Sullivan Financial Independence Program. 25 people of all ages proudly accepted certificates and small grants to further their education or start modest businesses. Vanessa stood beside him at the podium. They didn't touch, but their movements were in sync, as if connected by something deeper. A simple gold band had returned to her finger 2 months earlier, after a quiet ceremony at the Carter estate. Nothing like the grand wedding that had once started us down this path. After the ceremony, Robert Winters found me in the crowd. He looked more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. She would have loved this, he said, nodding toward the graduates mingling with their families. Yes, I agreed softly. She would have. Robert leaned closer. Have you told him yet? Not yet, I said. Soon. That evening, I invited Tyler and Vanessa to dinner at my home. After we ate, we sat together in the living room. I handed Tyler an envelope. What's this? He asked. The final part of Jennifer's plan, I explained. Inside was a letter I had written, detailing the full terms of Jennifer's trust, including the clause that the money would pass to Tyler once he proved, through his actions, that he had turned away from Richard's values and embraced Jennifer's vision of service and compassion. Tyler looked up from the letter, stunned. You're giving me the money. No, I corrected gently. Jennifer is. It was always meant for UNET as a right, but as a responsibility. You earned it. The scholarships and programs will continue, but now you'll guide the rest. Vanessa squeezed his hand as tears filled his eyes. I don't deserve this, he whispered. It's not about deserving, I told him. It's about becoming. Jennifer always saw who you could be. Richard's influence just delayed it. Later, after they left, I sat alone in my garden as twilight settled over Boston. I felt Jennifer's presence in the rustle of the spring leaves. You were right, I whispered. About everything. The money would have destroyed him back then. Keeping it from him forced him to grow. As the cool breeze brushed against me, I thought back to that wedding day, the secrets, the schemes, the $33 million hanging in the balance, and I realized how far we had all come, not just in saving Jennifer's legacy, but in saving Tyler's soul. That quiet had been Jennifer's last gift to her son, room to fail, to fall, and finally to get back up on his own, not as Richard's puppet or just as Jennifer's heir, but as Tyler, imperfect, still learning, and finally, free. I looked up at the first stars and whispered, well played, my girl. 5 years later, the Jennifer Sullivan Foundation was paying for money classes in community centers across 30 states. Tyler and Vanessa worked side by side. Their marriage had been broken and carefully put back together, and they now had a 3-year-old daughter named Jennifer, already stubborn and kind like her grandmother. Richard popped up sometimes with a new scheme, always trying to find a way in, but Tyler cut him off. He sent just enough money for Richard to live on and refused any real contact. Robert Winters sat on the foundation's board, using his money know-how and his memories of Jennifer to help it grow. Sometimes I'd catch him watching Tyler and see Jennifer in his face. As for me, I still live in my small house, drive my sensible car, volunteer at the hospital, and keep the modest life I like. The neighbors don't know that the quiet retired nurse down the street ran a multi-million-dollar trust for almost 10 years, or that my grandson now leads one of the fastest-growing charities in the country. I visit Jennifer's grave every week with fresh flowers and news about what we've done. You should see him now, I tell her, and sometimes, when the wind moves the trees just right, I like to think I hear her answer. I knew he would. Mom, that's why I left the money to you. You were the one who would wait. Before I tell my next story, if you enjoyed this one, please subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment. Your support helps me share more stories like Tyler and Maggie's. That's today's story. If it touched you, leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget, share your own life lesson in the comments below.